How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Beyond Action. As always, I'm your host, Merloski, and over the past few weeks, I've been diving a bit too much into the superhero genre. You know, we always see that, and I always love talking about it because there's just so much to talk about there. But today, I want to take a bit of a step back, go a bit more into reality, go into a show that doesn't need much of a introduction for some of you. And if you have already seen the title, then yes, I will be talking about Squid Game. But more importantly, I will be talking about my probabilities up against the Squid Games. If you're excited to see what comes next in this episode, then you should definitely hit that subscribe button because this is going to be a fun ride. For those of you that don't know what the Squid Game is, then you haven't seen the hit Korean show that is on Netflix, probably one of their best shows of all time. It is the Squid Game. It's like a series of childhood games that kind of have a twist of it. Yeah, I'll be explaining that twist right now in a second. And so it's a lot of like people that are struggling with money and they have an out. They have a chance to make a bunch of money to just play some childhood games, which seems fun enough. But then the big twist in this is that it is actually a lot more sinister and a lot darker than a lot of you probably imagined. As if you fail in the game, you basically fail at life and you are getting expelled from life. If you end up losing this, you will get killed, and it happens a lot more than you think. We start the crew with 456 characters, and we get down to only one surviving. So obviously, if you've seen the show, then you know the games, but I will be going through all the games, explaining what they are, explaining how difficult I think that they would be, and then at the end of every explanation, after I finish every explanation of every game, then I will be talking about my probabilities of faring up all against these games, just because there are some people that haven't watched the show and don't really want to watch the show because it does go into a bit more of a crude topic, a really gory topic, and so I just don't think that a lot of you might want to be exposed to that, and so I'll just try to explain it in the most kid-friendly type of way. Let's get started with the first game. The first game is red light, green light. Obviously, you've played this when you were a kid. If you haven't, then you don't really have much of a childhood. I'm sorry to tell you, you just didn't have much of a childhood growing up because of this game everyone played. You played it at recess. You played it on the street with your friends. You just did everything with like just a group of people, and this was a very basic game for everyone to play. So if you haven't played it, you have no childhood, so you should probably go outside and play it. But the way that this game is structured, you basically just hear red light, green light, and green light you can walk. You have to cross a certain boundary in a certain amount of time. If they say green light, you can walk. If they say red light, you must stop. But like I said, every game has somewhat of a twist, and if you get caught out when you're walking and it says red light and you move a bit, then you will be shot and killed. And so this kind of leads into a chain reaction where a bunch of people are eliminated. Because of this, I think it was like 250 people were eliminated because of just the sheer amount of like tension that there was. Because, oh my God, you see someone get their brains blown out and then all of a sudden, like, you know, you're like trying to get out of the way. But in the game, that is what happens. I'll be diving a bit more into that type of psychology a bit later of if I will survive or not, but right now I'm just trying to explain the games a bit so I don't need to introduce them as much whenever I do get to my probabilities. Next up is Honeycomb. Obviously, a lot of people are unfamiliar with this game, but basically you get given a cookie and you have to cut out a certain shape. In the game, they make them like stand in a like line and get the shape that like certain wall is representing. And so a lot of people, you know, they go for a certain shape that they just feel a bit more comfortable with, but you don't really know what you're gonna get until the actual game. And obviously, like I said, all of these games have a twist. So if you break the actual shape inside of the cookie, then you will get eliminated as well. I think that this game doesn't really need too much of an explanation. It's just try to get the cookie into the shape that you want it to be. If it breaks, you're dead. The third game is Tug of War. If you haven't played this one, then I know that you definitely just need to be educated on what a childhood is, because this game was literally there in gym class. The field days that we had, it was everywhere. But for those of you that might be new to this, you basically just grab a rope, and it's tug of war. So you just grab a rope, two different teams, and it's just brute force or maybe technique, like it is shown in the show. They like kind of like hold them off, and then whenever it's time, they like bring it in, and that's basically how the game is. You just basically just try to get a rope and try to pull it to your side. In this game, it's no different, but you're on a ledge, so you pull the other team off the ledge. That is what happens in this game, and so that is why this game is a lot more dangerous. The next game, the fourth game in the Squid Games, is the marble game. The marble game is a bit harder to explain because in the Squid Game, they gave everyone 20 marbles. They gave 10 to each partner, and they're like, hey, we don't care how you do it. Just give us the 20 marbles, and then your partner will be eliminated. But the way that they played this game, our main character, our protagonist, 456, and the 001, they played together, and they played evens or odds. So one person has the marbles in their hand, and like they pick how much they want to wager, and so the other person will just say even or odd. If the person has 3 marbles, then he gives up the 3 marbles. If he has 1 marble, then he gives up the 1 marble. If he says the other one, I'm pretty sure the other person gives you the amount of marbles. I might be wrong about that one, but it's really not important because our main character just tried to use 001's dementia up against him. And so it just happens to be like that. But it's all just a probabilities game and just a betting game. Obviously, you have a lot of different ways that you could play the marble game, and I'll be explaining that further down the line when I actually do explain what I would do in these situations. Let's go on to the next game. The next game being the Glass Bridge, the probably one of the most infamous Squid Game games. Aside from green light, red light, green light, of course, everyone knows that like little doll that, well, like not little, big ass doll that just stands there and like hides her face and stuff like that. Everyone knows that. But in the Glass Bridge, it's basically a 50-50% chance over a long bridge of will I stand on the right glass or the left glass. And the right glass might be just like a fake glass. So if you jump on it, you'll fall, obviously, to your death in this game. But if it's the right one, then it will have enough weight to support one person on it. And so or like I think it was like 3 people on it. And so you can step on it and then get to the next one. But that one has a lot of different implications that I think is very interesting. Once I go into my probabilities, I will be going into the probability of how likely it is that I can survive that. So obviously, the farther back you are, the better. But the thing is, a lot of people don't want to make the jump because they're going to die. And so it goes a lot into that type of, you go first. No, I like just all that pointing fingers type of thing will happen in this game because nobody wants to go first. And if you go last, there is a timer that might get you in the very end. Last but not least, we have the Squid Game, the actual game itself. I will put a photo right here where I can explain a bit of the rules. So you start in the circle area where then you go like you have 2 teams. You have an offense and you have a defense. The offense, their goal is to get to to get to the entrance of the squid, because the way that the game is laid out is supposed to be in the figure of a squid. So you will have the circle where you have to go down to like do the like you have to hop on one foot going downward. You have to cross the squid, and once you cross the squid, you can use both legs. Then once you use both legs, you can get to the entrance. At the entrance, now it is basically a free-for-all, and you just have to go to the other side. As a defender, you have to kind of be pushing the other person. They can't get into the squid, and if they fall, I think that they get out. In the actual Squid Game itself, the final game was played a lot more maliciously, and it was the last person standing. Basically, just if you die, you die. And so it was the last person standing wins. And obviously, if you've seen the show, you know what happens. I'm trying not to give any spoilers about it because I just don't want to go too much into the story, and I want to go more into the individual games and how I would fare up against the games. But we basically know that the main character always has enough plot armor to get through everything, and I won't have that same plot armor. Even saying that I don't have that type of luck to get all the way to this last game. But basically, the defender has to try to get the attacker out of the field, or in the child game, you're supposed to get them down on the ground. And so it's just like a fight at the end. And I will be explaining all the probabilities that will come after, all of the probabilities and implications that come after. Obviously, the coin toss being either defense or attacking. So I'll just be explaining a bit of all that just because I think it's a very interesting thing to note. Obviously, when I talk about the Squid Game, I do not say that it is easy at all. I think that it is one of the hardest social experiments that I have ever seen. But it's just how I think I would fare up. Obviously, everyone's a bit different. I am 5'9", 5'10". I have somewhat of an athletic build, not really too much. But athleticism doesn't always go into luck. When it comes into tug of war, I will be a bit I might be a bit better depending how the size of other people, depending if you have someone bigger and stronger, they will obviously be able to beat me. But in this case, I'll just be able, I'm just going to be saying the bare minimum of what would make it more even and more equal so that I don't get too many, I don't get stuck on too many probabilities and implications. So enough just talking about this game. Let's actually go into my probabilities. So obviously let's go into this case. I am in extreme poverty and I need some money, and then this guy just all of a sudden comes up to me and he's like, yo, I can get you a ton of money. All you have to do is win this game. You'll be playing a lot of games that you'll recognize, so don't worry about it. You know what? That sounds easy enough. Let's go. And so I go into the Squid Game and I go into the red light, green light game. And, I don't know anybody, so I'm just going to, ignore the fact that I have any ties for now. Later, it's very important to say that that 456 has his cousin there, but I'm just going to go without any implications of family or anything. And so we start the game. I'd be one of the people that always try to anticipate the, red light, green light, and I'm very smart in that way. Not smart, but I'm very cautious in that way. I won't move before it is said, and I'll stop before red light is even called. And so I think that I would make it just because I'd be that type of let's say without any casualties being hurt. I'm very smart about when I want to stop, and I don't try to wager too much my probabilities. But the thing is, whenever people start dying and you start to hear gunshots and you start to hear people screaming and everything becomes real, it's all about instinct. What type of instinct do you have is something completely different that varies between person and person. And I personally have a stand my ground instinct. If someone is if a raging bull is coming at me, obviously I'm gonna want to run, but I know what happens if I run. I become weaker, and so I'll kind of just try to tank the hit or something. So I think that if I see a person getting shot in this case and everyone running back, I think that I'll be somewhat smart enough to just be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna stand my ground. I'm gonna go up against the odds, and then once the nerves kind of subside, I can go through. I think red light, green light, I'm definitely going through. I don't know if it's just because I've watched the show and just because I have that type of instinct, but I might be wrong. It's just my opinion, and hopefully I'm never in that situation where I have to prove it. So I go to sleep, and then the next day I wake up and we gotta go and pick a shape. Obviously, watching the show, I know that the harder shapes are the umbrella and the star, but I wouldn't even pick those. Not even if they were there and I was like, hey, that's pretty interesting. I'd probably go for a more basic shape, like a circle or triangle or maybe even a square. I don't remember what shapes were given exactly, but I know that a circle was one of them, and I think a square was the other one. Yeah, I think a circle, square, and triangle, and then the umbrella. I'd probably go for a basic shape. The umbrella, I just don't like umbrellas very much. I don't know why. And so I like saying that I go with a circle, 100% I'm getting through. A triangle, I'd also give myself 100%. And a square, the edges are a bit more like defined. And so that might be a bit tougher. But I still think I'm getting through with that one. The one that makes me doubt myself is the umbrella. And if I have the umbrella, I'd say I have less than a 50-50. I'd say like maybe a 33% chance of passing it. Just because it's really difficult, like all the different like edges and ridges and like the curve that you have to do. I think that it's just a very difficult thing to do. But I think I could do it nonetheless. I think that I am a very resourceful person in a way. And also, whenever I was a kid and like they'd give me like the cookies with like the circle or like the square and stuff like that, like I'd always eat the shape out. Like I'd always get like everything but the shape out first because I don't know why I thought that the like inside shape just tasted a lot better. And so like that's just what I try to do constantly and I have a lot of practice in it. So I think I'm going through in this game. But believe it or not, after this is where it gets harder and it will be definitely a lot more difficult for me to be surviving these games. Tug of War is the one that I think is a bit more difficult because then here in the show you have to have like they have like their friend group and so they pick the right people to join them. But let's just say that it's just two sides of me where I'm fighting against one of myself, or if I'm doing it in a group of people that have a similar build to me, I think I could do it. It really just depends on who wants it more. Who, like, obviously by now you've seen, oh, okay, like you're gonna die if you lose. So it's just about who wants it more. I think that the strategy that they used in the actual Squid Game was so smart, and it's something that I would do every time I do like an arm wrestle with someone. I do the same thing where I try to hold them off. I know I'm a weaker opponent, and so I try to hold them off, and then whenever they like get their guard down, I like push down their hand. And so I think I would do the very same concept that they did in the actual Squid Game, where you get in a position that you can hold your ground. You hold your ground, and then once they're tired of trying to push, you start to pull them back, and then once they start to resist, you get back into the same position. They'll try to pull you again, and so you just keep on doing that until they can't move anymore. Until they have literally like, if it gets to the other side and like I start like, if I'm the one in the front, okay, I'm definitely dead. But if I'm the one in the back, I think I can definitely pull it out because I just have like more of like a ground to like to think about, like pulling the rope and stuff like that. And I just think that I have a lot more, I think that my mentality would like be less messed up if I'm all the way in the back other than seeing like the cliff under me. But that's just very situational, and I think that I would have that type of instinct to survive it. But like I said, the games are only getting more and more difficult and with more and more luck. So let's just get into the next game, which the next game is the marble game. The marble game is pure luck and pure wagering, and I am terrible at that type of luck. My luck can be so good. It can be like up here, or it can be the worst luck you've ever seen in your life. And so I just think that if my life depended on it, and like I had that type of pressure, I would probably lose because I'm not a very logical person when it comes to people's psychology and like who, like where you'll put the marble and what hand you'll put the marble. And so I'd probably just like go a bit over or go like, and I would probably lose on this one. But this is a probability one, so it might be that my bad luck isn't as bad as the other person's bad luck. And obviously, in the game, they play with one of their friends, and since it's one of your friends, you kind of just feel bad for them. And so I don't know. I might either go the selfless way out by giving him my marbles, or maybe I would just actually win the game. But that's a 50-50% chance. And I think that it's way too hard to judge on a 50-50% chance. but more than likely, here's where I would stay. So let's just go into the next two games just because of a consolation. The next game is the toughest game to beat, in my opinion, because I think it was like 17 or 18 people that survived at this point. And so you have 17 or 18 spots, and you have to pick your spot. And so obviously they pick their spot and everything goes fine. But you have the timer going off. You have the 50-50. You have the 50-50 that you have to do. But there are 18 different 50-50s that you have to do. If you are the first person, if I am the first person, I'm dead. There's no way that you can RNG 18 50-50s. There's no way. Like, I was doing some of the math, and that probability would be a staggering 0.0038% chance of beating the entire thing. Because, okay, let's say I do the first hop, that's a 50-50% chance. The fact that I'm going to do that next hop and get it right is a 1 out of 4% chance. Because obviously you have to go on the first one and then you have to go on the second one. So that's 4 tiles that you have to do to get to just one of those. And you have 18 different pairs of those. So that means that you have 18 50-50s, which means a 0.00338% chance of surviving. That is next to none. If you are first, you are dead. I don't care what type of luck you have. If you are the luckiest man on earth or the luckiest woman on earth, if you are the luckiest person on earth, you are still gonna die in this. There's no way that you go first and then you die. And then obviously there are all these social problems that obviously go into that case. If I'm the last one, I think that it would also be a very difficult thing to survive. I don't think I could survive it. Personally, the glass bridge is where I just mess up. I might mess up a jump, and so then I just fall. I might just not make it on time. I think that if I'm farther back, I have a way higher probability of surviving. But I don't think that I'm surviving the glass bridge whatsoever. And this is where my run would end. But hey, that's just what I think. I think that I'm just not cut out to do the glass bridge. But let's go into the very, very last game, the Squid Game. Let's say I survived. Spoiler alert. In the show, it was between the two cousins. And I know that that's like a bit weird, like fighting your own cousin for survival. So, you know what? Just to make it fair, I'm going to put myself up against my cousin, my younger cousin. He's a lot more eager than I am, but let's just go into some of the specifics. The game starts with a heads or tails. Obviously, you call it, and if I was like given like, hey, you're gonna be playing a random game, what would you rather be? I'd go for offense because I feel like as an offensive player, you have a lot more of a probability of having the ability to decide what happens. Let's say that you play football. Okay, with American football, you get to like throw the ball and try to make the touchdown. If you make the touchdown, it's your points. If you're the defender, you just have the simple like defense, which isn't simple, but like you have to defend, and if you don't, then you have the attack that can help. But in this game, since you're only given the choices between defense and offense, I think I would choose offense, but I'm going to give you like both of my probabilities on these. If I have offense and I make it to the entrance of the squid, like I explained, you start in the circle, you go down on one foot, then you cross, and then you get to the entrance. If I make it to the entrance, there's no way that my little cousin is beating me. Like, there's absolutely no way. I just have that type of drive for whenever I make it into a certain position to where I can see the ending, you're not beating me. I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna get through because I have that type of motivation that if I can see the things throughout, I'll finish them. I have a lot of discipline to finish them, and so sadly for my cousin, I'd beat him in this case. I'd make it to the square. Obviously, in the game there were knives and there were a lot of weapons that were like used. But I'm just going to go with a clean fist fight. I'm not going to go with the knives. Although with the knives, I do think that it might give us both kind of an edge. But let's just say pure fist fight, then I think that if I can be on the ground and take him out, I think that I would definitely win, just because, like, obviously, I stand my ground and I have him. I am bigger. I do think that my cousin wouldn't be able to push me out of the boundaries, therefore making me win in offense. In defense, however, we have my cousin attacking, which, yes, let's just say that he makes it. If he makes it to the entrance, then that is where that's where I have the 50-50, because I can try to push him out. We used to do like these sumo wrestling wars type of thing, and I'd always win because my physicality is a lot bigger, and so I'd always win. And so in this case, it would be the same thing. Like, he'd have to try to outpace me or like maneuver me to try to get him. But like I said, in this game, all rules are done. Everything goes, and so you can just grab him, you can throw him on the ground, you can slam him, you can punch him, you can do whatever you need to do. And so I think that it would demoralize me to see him at the entrance, knowing that I didn't beat him in the first half. But I do think that I would have the will to live that would make me win this game. But sadly, I've already died. And so since I've already died, then I have to, go with the consequences and then just be dead, I guess. But I didn't explain one thing that would make all of this video just go out the window. And it is in two different cases. Whenever after the first game, after the red light, green light, they had a vote that said, would you want to get out of the game or would you want to stay in? Again, spoiler warning. And they voted to get out, and I would be the ones that vote to get out. I don't think that we should be in this type of game where like it is just dangerous for everyone to be in, and people are dying a lot. I just don't think that it would be the right idea, so I would probably get out of the game. Then we have the like nights that like people got violent and that people attacked each other. There, I'd be one of the first people to die. I am so bad at protecting myself when everything's dark and just all of these things are going on, all these flashing lights are in my face and stuff like that. I would just be so bad at this part that I think I would just die right then and there. If I don't, then we already know I'm making it to marbles or the glass bridge. But I do say that in one of those nights, I'm not a violent person. And since I'm not a violent person, then I probably get like walked over, stabbed, and like killed in the first night. But hey, that's just like what would happen to me. I would love to hear down in the comments if you guys think that you guys would survive the Squid Game. Maybe you haven't seen the Squid Game, and so for my explanation, you can like kind of see how much you would fare. I'd want to hear a actual personal an actual response, not just like, yeah, I could survive anything. No, I want to know if you could actually survive the Squid Game. If you couldn't, and hey, you've watched all the way until here, so you should definitely just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and like I said, comment down below what your chances are. This has been Beyond Action. I'm your host, Merloski. I will see you all next week. I hope you've enjoyed this video.